how we can adapt our behaviours to interact with others more effectively.
Welcome to the Marketing Mentors podcast, brought to you by Red Pandas Digital. My name's Tasha and I am joined with the lovely Linda. And in today's episode, we are talking about how we can adapt our behaviours to communicate, to work with our colleagues more efficiently and more effectively. Very interesting topic, Linda.
It is. I feel like there is a lot to unpack there.
Definitely.
One thing I will say, T, with temperaments and personalities is, and I know you definitely have some examples on this extends way beyond colleagues, right? Let's talk the way people's temperaments and the way that we adapt our own behaviours towards their temperaments and their personality totally depends on the type of conversation we're having and who we're having that conversation with, whether it's a sales conversation, colleagues, maybe it's our managers, for example. And I guess also communication. Let's not just think verbal, but let's also think, written as well. And being able to understand, emails. If we can understand people's personality types and their temperaments better, then we can write emails more effectively. We can have better conversations with them as well.
Or record videos for your emails more effectively.
For those that are listening, we actually did this entire podcast and then realised we did not record.
So this is take 2, but I'm very excited to repeat everything I just said the first time. That's right, it happens. But a lesson we'll definitely learn from. So what we're referring to a lot in this podcast, or in this episode, is DISC personality testing, so DISC. A joke I made in the last episode was, the previous take was it's DISC, not K, which
I saw K in Tasha's notes.
Look, it's a common mistake.
Happens all the time.
Of course. And the other one is the temperaments test. So, if you're listening along and you haven't heard of those, definitely give them a Google search and do the test yourself. There's heaps of free ones out there and just see where you sit. I like them because it does bring up some of your weaknesses. Maybe you are aware of them, maybe you're not aware of them. It's good to be aware of your weaknesses because then 1, you can work on them so they become more strengths. But then 2, when you know that your weakness is prone to come out or at play, you can kind of counter that or just be aware of it at least. And then that's being self-aware, and then having knowledge of where your colleagues or where your clients sit on those scales or those frameworks. Again, you're aware of their strengths and weaknesses, so you can, to your point, Linda, communicate to them better. Come to them at the angle that you know they're going to be receiving what you're saying better. And then I want to get into a little bit later when we talk about, working with colleagues around things like how we communicate and what needs to be said and how we say it. So
T, I'm curious actually. Tell me, what's your DISC profiling or your temperament?
I feel like you could probably guess this one, Linda. I recently did it and I got a 41% D and a...
no alarm bells there.
Thank you. And a 36% I. So high D closely followed by an I, and then the S and the C were in there, but they were small, very small percentages. So that says to me, and again, like you said, no alarm bells. I'm energetic, enthusiastic. My people, my team, they're everything. I'm very much oriented around my team. And in my leadership role, in my style is I want us to get the results we need to get to together. And I'll do what I need to support and push people to get there. With that said, I just said push. That's how you know I've got the D in me because I will.
Hey, we're aware.
Yeah, exactly. We're aware. I can sometimes come across as too direct or too blunt, too short. And for different personality types, they might see that as me being attacking or attacking them. And, I will share in a moment some examples is some case studies, but some examples when that did actually happen in my current role, my previous roles, where I have been told that my directedness, my bluntness has been seen as attacking. With that said though, Linda, I'm very interested to know, I feel like I know what yours are already, not because we recorded this before, but I just subtle drops here and there. No, because we've obviously worked with each other for some time. I see some similarities, but I also see some big differences as well. So why don't you share what your personality
We overlap with, in DISC, we overlap with the I. So I'm very high I. Although to be honest, DISC I did a very long time ago, and I think it has changed. Maybe the second dependent, but the first one, the I, am definitely still that. So all about the people and caring about relationships and nurturing relationships and working closely with people to be able to get results. And that results are driven from people.
Yeah,
we definitely are aligned in that respect. The second type was S, which is like loyalty, yes, but then there's like a dependable. They don't like to be rushed, and I think that's changed, to be honest.
Yep.
Particularly even in this role, because it's so fast paced, like you have no choice but to rush. And then the temperament test as well, that I feel like that was more reflective of me, and I've done that one more recently. So that was melancholic and choleric.
Yeah, interesting.
And that's the the choleric is the D, I guess, if you're going to compare them.
Yeah.
And it's that things have to be done right.
Yeah.
And they have to be able to get results. Like they're the two most important things to me when it comes to like my personality type in the workplace. And I think that's me to a T, like the attention to detail and driving bottom line results.
So for if you're listening and you're kind of not sure what the D, I, S and C is, D is dominance, I is influence, S steadiness, C compliance. And obviously each of them mean their own things. And when you do those, like I think some free tests online, they give you a bit of a breakdown as to obviously which ones are more predominant in the answers that you respond to in these questions. And then there's some really cool stuff out there as to, you know, how to deal with different people in those situations and all that type of stuff. But it kind of brings me to our first example of how we've had to adapt our behaviour, well, I have in the workspace, and that is, and this has happened many times. I think the high dominance characteristic that I have, that bluntness, that kind of maybe too assertiveness or authoritativeness can come across as sometimes being attacking. And what had happened is I'd had a team member that, no hierarchy in this particular role that I was in, but it was very much like a deadline was missed and I didn't know how else to say to my team member, hey, you missed that deadline.
Yeah.
And the way I said it, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. It seemed pretty straight to the point. There was no fluff. I just did what I had to.
Because that's how you enjoy having conversations.
Exactly. Just cut to the chase. I'm that person that goes to the end of the book and reads the ending first because I don't have time for the other fluff of the book. And then someone's like, no, Tasha, read the book because it's actually quite interesting. And then I'm
you just read the chapter summaries.
Yeah, at the end. In high school when they tell you to read all those books.
Oh, that was me.
Do you remember Spark Notes? Spark Notes was my life. Or my best friend who read everything inside out, and I'd say, give me the rundown, and then I do my notes.
Yeah, good times.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But so in this particular example, it wasn't until my colleague said, hey, Tash, when you said this is how it felt. And then when she said that, I was like, whoa, self-awareness, light bulb moment. I never meant to attack her.
Yeah.
I was genuinely coming from a place of candidness. Yeah. I just wanted to tell her what I needed to tell her. Didn't have time for any fluff. And it was received wrong. And now I value my team members so much that I was taken aback because I really didn't want to hurt their feelings. And I did.
I think that's a really important point, T, and something that you kind of touched on earlier. And it's the fact that when we talk about understanding people's temperaments and our own temperaments, there's always two sides to it.
Yeah.
And in communication, there's having the ability to be able to understand your own temperament and your own personality types, but then to be able to understand somebody else's.
Exactly.
So that way you can work on how you deliver that message, but then also consider how they will receive the message in turn.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think along with being aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, someone else's strengths and weaknesses, and then this thing, you mentioned before, I don't know if that was before we started recording or before, but we were talking about a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott, I think it is. And I'll just make sure it's definitely Kim Scott. Yep, Kim Scott. And basically Radical Candor, it talks about, two main kind of four main areas that someone can be in when they're delivering something that needs to come across as candid or truthful or direct, right? Yeah. And being radically candid, which is where we want to try and work on being in, means we're going to be being direct, but also being caring and coming from a place of care. And so I think if we look at communication holistically and we say, okay, I know that this person is definitely not a high D or a high I, maybe they're more of a C or an S.
Yeah.
And they are going to receive my directiveness not the way that it needs to be received. And as a leader, as a mentor, as an emotionally aware individual, I need to say, okay, how am I going to deliver what it is I need to deliver in a way that they're going to receive it because of their personality type, but also in a way that's radically candid and not the opposite, which was ruinously empathetic.
Yeah.
So that's when you're too empathetic that you just can't deliver the message. You're not direct at all. You just kind of wish-wash all over the place. And
well,
you don't
we know
get what
as
you need to get.
coaches talking to clients in regards to that communication style, if you will, that people mostly fall into the ruinous empathy category, which is you're really, really caring. For example, someone's late to a meeting and, oh, it's okay. Like, I know you have a lot on and you're really busy and you're making excuses for them. And less on the radically candid side, which is being able to communicate in a way that shows that you really care about that person, but you're able to challenge them when they need it.
Yeah.
And I know when I did the DISC personality years ago, it showed me two metrics. It showed me an adapted style for me in the workplace, and then my natural style.
Yeah.
And my natural style was really high. It was higher in D.
Yeah. Wow.
And then in the workplace, it was a lot lower.
Like you were.
And I would subdue that dominant personality type because maybe I felt like it was too direct and masculine.
Yeah,
and
I was about to say, I think that's a whole other
totally
topic that we could talk about, where I do think sometimes women in corporate roles or just in roles in general, we can be made to feel we need to shut down some of that masculinity we might have, which is it's a whole other topic. But I hear what you're saying, and it's really I would probably disagree with that now. I think your D is maybe a little bit higher than
it needs to be.
Especially in a leadership role, and like I was saying before, it's important that we come to our team members and our colleagues from a place of like radical candor, but also awareness of, okay, you are more of an introverted person and you deal with things like internally. So I'm not going to speak to you in a way that's going to make you doubt yourself and then go off and have a horrible day because I said something the wrong way.
Yeah.
I'm still going to come from a place of caring and love, but I'm going to be candid.
Yeah.
With that said, I know you've got some examples really similar, like personality types and what we need to do from a sales point of view.
Yeah, because like we said, so it really depends on adapting your behavior based on who you're talking to and the types of conversations you're having. And you and I have spoken mostly on like internal work, so, client relationships, colleague relationships, team members. But in sales, I guess they really, you need to think about people's temperaments and personalities in a different way.
Yeah.
And for salespeople really should be considering affinity bias. And for those that are listening, affinity bias is a cognitive bias where as humans, we're naturally drawn to people that we like. And we're naturally drawn to people that are like us.
Like us. And it can, and it's kind of like, if you've probably heard, I've heard of unconscious bias, which is probably, I'm guessing, like a similar thing. It's an unconscious bias we have.
Yeah.
For people that are like us or people that we want to be like, even.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah, I guess it would usually be an unconscious bias.
Yeah.
That we're naturally just drawn to people that, have the same hobbies as us, like the same music as us, interested in the same things, talk a similar way. And I guess for people in those roles, a really great way and something that we've been learning is the law of 3. Yes. And it's a really great way to be able to deep dive and try and understand somebody's personality and just gauge their mood in a really quick way.
Yeah, quickly.
So the law of 3 is really the understanding that when you ask someone a question, the first answer they give you isn't always the core root of that answer, and you need to ask an additional 2 questions before you can really get to the core of it. But it's a really great way to quickly identify what the general mood is like of somebody and their personality.
Yeah, I actually, now that you mention it, I remember when we first did that exercise in that course we're doing, where to really practice the law of 3 with someone, and like anyone listening can do this, ask someone, if you won $1 million, what would you do with it? Question 1.
That was a good one.
You get the answer and then keep asking. Just keep asking. And you'll see, what were the results of that, Linda? Do you remember?
Oh, I ended up finding out all of this personal stuff that no one would generally share, but because you keep asking those follow-up questions, you just naturally end up in that way, and all of a sudden you're having a D&M with someone
100%. So
and they don't know you.
That's the power of that law of 3. So in that sales environment, when you start asking those questions, and it's not just why, it's better words than that, right? But it's those very specific questions you keep asking. It helps that person get to know that other person very quickly, which then allows them to have better sales conversations with them. I say sales, but it's just conversations in general.
Yeah. I mean, like back to that example, T.
Yeah.
Let's say they're in a situation and let's say a sales agent is pitching for business and they're going in and they're pitching to get the business of a seller's business, right? And they walk in and they notice that the sellers are really introverted. They are quiet, they're analytical, they talk slower, they think before they speak, and you have two sales agents going in to that meeting. One of them, let's say they're both really dominant, but one of them goes in and displays that dominant personality by being super loud, talking really, really quickly.
Lots of hand movements.
Exactly. And then the other agent, who also has a dominant personality type, goes in, asks the law of three, identifies quickly that seller is more introverted, is quieter tone, less body movements. By mirroring them and also kind of becoming a chameleon in a way, they're most likely to have affinity bias work in their advantage. And really that's important when it comes to sales. It's obviously just one aspect of selling,
of course,
but still really important to be able to adapt your behavior based on other people's personality types and temperaments.
And some might see that as, I need to be likable. It's not about being likable. It's about being relatable, like connecting with that person, but strategically doing it, asking those awesome questions, finding that like gap where you can bridge it and say, okay, we're similar. I like this. I can talk to you. I can share with you.
Yeah.
You might not get the sale, but you'll definitely leave a good impression on that person, and they might potentially come back to you for another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Linda, that was awesome. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on to personality types, temperament types?
Yeah, I think we've obviously been speaking a lot about being able to identify what someone's personality type is and their general temperament. But I think it would be remiss of us not to talk about what happens when you misidentify that.
Oh, of course.
And you get into a situation where, for example, you think that they're a dominant personality type and you act that way to them.
Yes.
But then it's also really important to stay in that conversation and actively look for any body language that could tell you otherwise.
Yeah, misreading signs.
Yeah, maybe they were first leaning in and listening, and then all of a sudden, you know, you go on and you have this really out there extroverted personality type, and they lean back and they cross their arms. It's important to be able to identify that body language and then maybe try and, to a degree, like reassess.
Adapt. Adapt like how you're approaching that conversation. Maybe you need to lower your voice. Yeah. Maybe you need to add more pauses in.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to kind of just ask them more questions. See how they're feeling, gauge
see how
the
often they're contributing if it's a one-way conversation.
Yeah. I think it all ties so nicely into emotional intelligence, EQ, emotional awareness. This is not a podcast for you to learn how to be more emotionally intelligent. I think all of these things that we talk about and we do and experience and practice is what helps get you there.
Yeah.
And being aware, like at every moment when you are in sales, when you are in leadership, when you're in mentoring, being aware and being open to critically reflecting on yourself and how you behaved in certain situations is what's going to get you to that next level.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, T.
Oh, thanks, Linda. I'm so glad that we did. Look, with that said, we are definitely at time this time, and we fully recorded this one, so I'm very, very happy with that.
Tick.
Look, listeners, the idea of this podcast is to answer your questions, so please go ahead and follow us personally on LinkedIn and send us those questions. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, guys.